is Dr. Qamar Cheema, and please do subscribe my new YouTube channel, The New World with Dr. Cheema. And I'm honored and thrilled to have with me Ms. Noha Mahmood, who is a UAE-based journalist, and she has been working with many newspapers. Thank you very much, Ms. Noha, for your time for my YouTube channel.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Ms. Noham, I wanted to have your perspective on the protests which are going on in Iran. Why do you think that the protests are going on in Iran? Why women are on the roads? Do you think that there is somewhere a new Arab Spring in the Middle East? How do you see this while sitting in Middle East?
This is the biggest protests in Iran in years, ignited by the death of a young woman, Mahsa Amini, in the custody of Iran's morality police. This unrest is flaring up across the country for a third week, despite government efforts to crack down. And I think this is an open challenge to the Iranian leadership, with women burning their state mandated headscarves and chants of death to the dictator echoing from streets and balconies after dark. I think it's a watershed moment in the history of Iran, because the country has never before seen like a mass protest like this, led by women in the history of Iran. Uh, 2 days ago or 3 days ago, we have seen the hours long standoff between students and the police at uh, Sharif universities. Sharif University is Iran's top technology university that turned the prestigious institution into the latest flashpoint of protests, and ended up with hundreds of young people arrested. And the situation in schools is not different. It's like the same in universities as well.
So, Ms. Nohab, you have been covering so much of the politics and looking things. We have seen that there is a lot of transformation going on in the Middle East. We have seen some developments in Saudi Arabia. We have seen developments in Iran, in UAE, and many other parts of the Middle East. What do you think? Why the regime in Iran they do not listen to the silent majority? What do you think? What are the motives behind that? That why they believe that these young women and the girls they don't have the say into the societal architecture or societal building? Why do you think this silent majority is not listened by the political or the religious clergy in Iran?
Because protesters' grievances have expanded beyond the treatment of women. The country's poor economic state, largely due to Western sanctions, corruption, and the current government's hardline conservative policies, have also fueled demonstrations. On the other hand, Iranian officials deny that Mahsa Amini was beaten by police, and instead stating that she died of a heart attack, which is an account refuted by her family. I think the demonstrations have tapped a deep well of grievance in Iran, including the country's social restrictions, political repression, ailing economy strangled by American sanctions, and this unrest has continued in Tehran and um, a far-flung province, even as authorities have disrupted internet access and blocked the social media apps. Most of the protests appear to be under 25, according to witnesses. So we are talking about new generation. We are talking about Iranians who have grown up knowing little but global isolation and severe Western sanctions linked to Iran's nuclear program. And uh, speaking of Iran's nuclear program, talks to revive the landmark 2015 nuclear deal have stalled for months. And this is fueling discontent as Iran's currency declines in value and prices soar.
Mm. So, Ms. Noha, we have noticed that there have been a lot of development since 3 weeks, as you have been mentioned, and why the region is silent, why there is no statement coming from the regional powers. We have not heard any significant voice from in the region, from the Middle East, for instance. I'm from Pakistan, Islamabad, and we have seen that even the Pakistani authorities, they have not uttered a single word on this. Nobody has uttered. So, but why the region is silent? Do you think that the political quarters and these civil society in Middle East, they are the same, or do you think that the politicians are silent deliberately and the civil society is speaking in one way or the other?
I think because the region has a principle of non interference in the internal affairs of other states. I think this is the reason. But we have to mention that Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei criticized Saudi Arabia for funding media outlets that promote protest and unrest in the country. As he said at his latest speech, the Saudi Arabia did not comment. Um, and regarding UAE, for example, when several attacks by Iran's Houthi allies hit the UAE, trade ties between the both countries, Emirates and Iran, were never broken, and a good neighbor policy still prevails. And this applies to other countries like Pakistan, as you mentioned. So more interaction with Tehran by the Emirates or by any other country in the Middle East is seen as a necessity because of geography and economic recovery from the pandemic and other issues. uh, both sides, I mean here Iran and UAE, will still disagree on policy objectives, but at the same time they need the formality to cooperate, to negotiate, to argue over threats where their interests overlap.
Hmm. So, do you think that this unrest is a foreign conspiracy, as Ayatollah Khamenei has mentioned? The Americans are behind this, the Western media is behind this, or do you think that this is basically an organic movement? This social upheaval is basically the social transformation is what the Iranian authorities have not done for long. So, to whom you give more value, to the foreign conspiracy, or do you believe that this is coming from the masses who are sick of and outdated and aggressive policies of the Islamic regime?
I don't think so. As this uncertainty lingers, uh, further showcasing the state's inability to take action on critical issues such as Western sanctions, as I mentioned before, corruption, and the current government's hard lines, conservative policies. Uh, Although the scope of the crackdown remains unclear, and untold numbers of people have been apprehended. Uh, Security forces have picked up artists who have voiced support for the protest, and dozens of journalists have been arrested as well. So no, I don't think so.
Hmm. So, whatever is going on in Iran, do you think that there is a possibility of some bigger change in Iran, or do you think the protesters have a larger support from the masses, and they are going to have an impact, or do you believe that it will just this movement will die down like other movements, or do you think that there is some there is a possibility that it can ignite further in coming days and weeks?
I think it's really important for those in the West to know that what Iranians women are protesting against in Iran today is forced hijab. This is not about the hijab. This is not about Islam. This is about taking ownership and reclaiming over their bodies to have the free choice of choosing how they want to dress. Uh, they don't want to be told by the state or by the authorities or anyone else how to dress. I think these women are taking a huge risk, but at the same time, they have reached a point that I think their rage is going beyond control. This collective rage is going to make a turning point in the history of women's movement in Iran. And I think protesters have a large support from the society, and it may be the start of something much bigger. But we see for the first time, it seems as though Iranians from all different regions and different ideologies are uniting against the regime.
So, Ms. Noha, one last quick question is how the social media is responding in the Middle East about this societal unrest? How, since the mainstream media or the governments may have their own policies, as you mentioned, the political apparatus has a policy of non-intervention in other affairs. So, how the society is basically responding, the youth particularly, let's say, in other parts of the Middle East, in Iran, Saudi Arabia, and GCC, and many other countries in Middle East, how they are responding to this unrest. Have you seen something related to this?
On social media, a lot of people is supporting what's happening in Iran, supporting the people, supporting the freedom. But as I mentioned before, the countries, the formal countries have a different opinion, or they have a different opinion, but they cannot express it. As I said before, they are like stick to this principle of non-interference in internal affairs of other states. But on social media, we see a lot of comments that support what the Iranian women uh, are doing in the street, support their freedom, support their choices.
Thank you very much, Ms. Noha. I think this is the right time. The governments must understand the societal transformation which is going on in the world, and they need to give that kind of a space to their communities. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for speaking with us.